The podcast is called Pearlmania 500. It involves a wife named Mrs. Pearlmania.
That's me.
A husband named Mr. Pearlmania.
You.
They sit across from each other on microphones.
Yep.
And then they both research something.
Maybe. Sometimes.
Hopefully. Sometimes it's just off the top of their head.
Yeah, sometimes they're just sitting there looking at their iPad and suddenly they've lost 3 hours and they just like, I need to tell you everything that just happened to me.
Yeah. Sometimes they just start clicking on hyperlinks and they're like, come back, and they have a board with strings tied to each other and like, it's all tied together, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what this podcast is.
Yeah.
We're desperately trying to figure out a way how to sum up this podcast in 2 sentences.
I wish we could do an elevator pitch of this podcast.
It's so difficult, but here's what we know.
Yeah.
It's Sunday,
Yep.
which means you're probably listening to this on Monday,
Yep.
which means you're trying to get through the work week, which means it's time for Pearlmania 500.
There's a place where you can't stay when the world gets too insane. Yeah, when the world gets too inane, tune in to Pearlmania. Brony talks and pony jars and saying a sonic race just. Fitness scams and grifters, damn, and various other miscellanea. So there's this place where you can stay to let those Pearlmans save ya. Pearlmania, Pearlmania, Pearlmania 500. Take it away, Pearlmans, and remember to smile.
Thank you so much to His Name Was Dusk. His Name Was Dusk, as you know, has done all of our theme music, and he has his new album is coming out. Mm-hmm. Some new tracks.
Yeah, they're on his Instagram.
They're on his Instagram, and we have a link to his website down the bottom of the show notes.
Nice.
So we like to plug that at the top, just to show people, that we could do plugs.
We can do that.
And then maybe if you have a brand out there that you want to push that doesn't rhyme with Schmetter Phelp, someday.
But does rhyme with shoe blue.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, if shoe blue, wait, blue? No.
See what I did?
Yeah.
I ruined
I
it.
see exactly what you did.
Yeah.
You know what? We are actually working on that.
I know.
We're going to get it.
Well, it's going to happen.
I want to be up here and be like, listen, my dick didn't work.
It's false. I have a baby in the room.
Stop ruining it.
Stop. I'm sorry.
All right?
Yeah.
We get enough cease and desist letters as it is.
Oh, God. It's like, we got to block these emails.
I know. Anyway, we're here. It's another episode.
Yeah.
It's another week. Mm-hmm.
We just ate a huge brunch.
Just a huge homemade brunch.
Yeah, I made pancakes,
Gluten-free
bacon,
pancakes.
Yeah.
Scrambly cheesy eggs.
Yep.
Big old thick cut bacon.
Yep.
I had a green tea.
Wonderful.
White. Yeah.
And I had a big iced coffee.
You had a big iced coffee.
I'm hype.
Yeah, and the baby had a big bottle.
Yep.
And now here we are.
Yeah, and I had the baby strapped to me, and you made fun of me because I put a napkin over his head so he didn't get pancake syrup on his head.
It was an elite move. There was a moment, I was telling you while we were sitting at the table, I'm like, we've gone from like all right, wait, how's his head positioned? Like, we want to make sure. And now we're just like, I can see a nostril. We're fine. Like, I see a nostril. We're fine.
I was like, listen, we just don't want to get pancake syrup on
It was
this
a
kid's
thin
head.
paper napkin. It was opened completely up. It was a
Everything was
one
perfectly
ply.
safe.
It was just to keep the syrup that she literally dropped so much of on that napkin. We're both exhausted still.
We are chaos monsters as we speak.
Yeah. But we have a really great episode this week.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited to play it.
Oh, heck yeah.
But before we get to that,
All right.
we have to do our usual.
Hey, hon, let's meet our team leaders.
Now, before we get into the team leaders this week,
Mm-hmm.
I do want to make a quick little side announcement here.
Yeah.
Which is, you and I have been discussing it because we have some changes that are coming to the
big
show.
changes.
Because season 2 is going to be starting.
It's going to be lit.
It's going to be starting very soon at the beginning of March.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, we're going to be making some changes to the Patreon.
Yep.
So if
Good
you're
ones,
very,
positive
very
ones.
good positive changes.
Yep.
Right. So right now, the $3 tier.
Yeah.
Is, you pay $3, you get access to the ad-free shows, and you get this shout out that everyone you're about to hear is about to get. That tier is going to be grandfathered away. All right, the cheapest tier.
The best value.
Okay, the best value tier.
Come on.
The basic plan.
Yeah, the basic plan.
Is being Netflixed.
Yeah.
We are Netflixing the basic plan.
Oh, God.
So if you want to get that tier and help us get towards me reading book 2 of the...
A Court of Thorn and Roses.
Yeah, if you want book 2, which is the even sexier one, which involves soup.
Okay, we don't know why.
We're getting closer and closer.
Does it involve soup or does it involve a soup can?
I don't know. We don't know. But we need
we're never going to find out.
We need about 200 more. We need about 200 more Pearl Maniacs to sign up for the Patreon.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/PearlMania500.
So yeah, basically, in March when we are going live and rolling out some new fun stuff.
Yep.
For season 2, we're not going to have the $3 tier anymore.
Yep.
But if you already sign up for it within the next few weeks,
you're
grandfathered in.
You're grandfathered in.
Yeah.
As long as you keep active in that tier, you will keep that tier.
Yeah.
So if you've been a long time listener and you are already in the $3 tier, you're fine. You're safe.
Yeah.
But if you're like, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
This is called urgency. We're building urgency. All right? Grifters do it all the time.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot from these people over the last few months.
I've been studying these grifters, and I've got ideas.
Yeah. You thought Mrs. P was teaching you about grifters.
I
No,
was studying.
we were learning. You thought Mr. P was learning
and
about
I have
cults.
a PowerPoint I want to sell you about how to start a podcast.
So with that, let's go ahead and say hi to these new Hey Huns and team leaders.
Yeah.
Up first, we have Magnus Centauri.
Yo, hey, hun.
After that, we have Weak to Fire.
Hey, hun.
That one feels sexual.
That feels specific.
That feels very
I wish
sexual.
I knew what that was about.
Weak to Fire.
Oh.
No, it's about the Martian Manhunter
Oh,
from DC Comics.
I don't know.
His one weakness is fire. And it's like, yeah, a lot of things' weakness is fire. Martian Manhunter.
Oh.
Like that fire is his kryptonite.
Okay, fire is like everything's kryptonite.
I know. It's like being weak to bullets. Anyway, after that, we have Hungry Hobbit.
Facts, potatoes, breakfast, second breakfast, lunch, second lunch, dinner, second dinner, dessert.
After that, we have...
Before bedtime snack potato.
After that, we have Jay Tolbert.
Hey, Jay.
Hey, Jay, how are you? I almost said Talbert like so many times. Talbot. I kept rereading it. But Tolbert. Thank you, Jay, for being a team leader. And finally, Mrs. P, are you ready?
Yeah.
We have, this brings me back to my AOL Instant Messenger days.
Snap.
This one just came in literally as I hit record.
Okay.
So their timing is perfect.
Perfect.
But I feel very much, this is very 2003 for a name.
Okay.
Hot Goth 420.
Fuck yeah, dude. Let's go. Hot Goth 420. Hey, hun.
Hey, hun.
I'm going to AIM you later.
Oh, whoa.
I better be in your top 5 of that MySpace page.
It was top 8.
No, but I want to be in the top 5.
You want to be in the top 5, but it was top 8.
No. The bottom people of the top 8 are still.
But if you use MySpace enough,
Yeah.
you could go up to a top 32.
That's too many. It's no longer selective then.
Okay. Well, I mean, my top 7 was all just Dane Cook and all the Dane Cook alts. Anyway, with that, we have a really great episode today.
Okay.
We have a very good friend of mine named Setoiyo.
He's incredible.
He's an amazing comedian. We are going to link to his album.
Yeah. It is so funny.
It's an amazing album that we were there live to see for his comedy album that was a live recording at Helium Comedy Club in Philadelphia. Setoiyo and I have known each other for a very, very long time. He is one of my best friends.
Yeah.
He is typically the person I am texting or screaming to when Mrs. P has had enough.
Yeah.
I turn to him.
Yeah.
His episode, we had a bunch of people on for this whole series that we were recording, and it was always amazing to see how people use their notes.
Yeah.
He only looked at his note once because all of this was off the top of his head because this is a topic that he is obsessed with.
Passionate.
Very passionate about, and we might have him back if we have a big enough response to this one.
Yeah.
We'll have him back to talk more about other famous boxing fights that he was in for.
Yeah.
But this one, even if you're not a boxing fan,
there's
there's so much history and there's so much other things that are around this.
Yeah.
This is basically like watching one of those ESPN 30 for 30s.
Yeah, exactly.
Except so much better and so much funnier.
It's so funny.
So Mrs. P, before we go ahead and kick to the past us, anything else you want to say?
No, I'm just having a good time, jacked up on coffee and bacon. And
Yeah.
I'm excited to re-listen to this episode because it was so funny.
It's such a good
and it was
episode.
so interesting because like I don't know a lot about boxing.
Yeah.
Like really. And so all of his knowledge was so detailed for someone that only looked at his phone once.
Yes.
It was incredible.
Yeah, and how it all crosses together. So
Yeah.
without further ado, we're going to link to Setoiyo's, all of his socials and everything down, obviously, in the hyperlinks, in the show notes, all those different things. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to be Patreons, continuing to be listeners, continuing to like, subscribe, comment, and review on iTunes, Spotify, and all those other places. We really, really do appreciate you, and we're going to keep this intro short so we can go right back to the past.
Pearlmania, 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 Pearlmania.
500, and we're back.
We're here.
We're here in the past. You just heard us in the future.
And we got a guest.
We have a guest.
A special guest.
We do have a special guest.
The most special.
The most special. He is a former co-host of a podcast I used to do. Mm-hmm. And now he's here.
Yep.
Sitting next to the co-host of the podcast I do now.
Yep.
Let's
But
hear
we're
it.
not enemies.
You're not
We're
enemies.
best
No,
friends.
we're best friends.
It's crazy how aligned you two are. We have Setoiyo here in the studio.
Hey, let's go.
Yes.
Yes.
It is me.
Yes,
It is I.
Setoiyo. We're so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for making the drive out.
Yeah.
I'm glad you still decided to come on the show.
Yeah, man.
Seeing as I abandoned you.
You did. You left me
Wow.
for a white woman.
Yeah.
I processed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in therapy a long time
Yeah.
now. So realistically, and also, if we're being honest here, generally that's how it goes in
Yeah.
friendships, isn't it? You leave your friend. You leave the comfort of a city
Yeah.
for a white woman. But more often than not, these white women are not particularly good and they do not have lips.
Yeah.
In this case, Mrs. Pearlmania is a fantastic white
I'm one
woman.
of the best white women.
and she's got Puerto Ricans in her family.
Top
so
tier
Yeah.
white women
Yes.
right
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
There is a lot of Puerto
There's
Ricans
a
in
lot.
my family.
A lot just happened on this episode already.
Yeah.
No, it's we should go ahead and cover this though really fast. Setoiyo and I used to have a podcast together where we talked about all sorts of different stuff, and then my fame took off, so I abandoned you
Yep.
immediately.
You left me immediately. Quickly.
Yeah,
Very
that's-
quickly.
That's what that's the story.
He left the man who kept him in comedy. I kept
Yeah.
him comedy adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And then he blew up.
Yeah.
He became a big deal. And like history shows us, he was like, I'm too good for you. I jettison you immediately.
Yeah.
I will jettison you. And then,
Yep.
and now I'm here.
Yeah.
This is him trying
that's-
to reestablish the relationship.
Yeah. Oh my
We're building
god.
bridges. We're building bridges.
Listen. Hey, how about this? I'm going to do you a favor right
Yeah.
now. All right,
Yeah.
let's pay you an exposure.
Okay.
Where can people find? Where can people find you online?
You guys can find me online on all social media platforms at Setoiyo1. That is SETOIYO1. I also have a comedy album that dropped called The Foreigner that is available on Amazon, Spotify, Apple Music. I recorded it at the legendary Helium Comedy Club in Philadelphia, and it's a fantastic album. So
It's so good.
It's very good. We
It's very
saw
fun.
we were there for the live recording.
Yeah, you can hear me cackling.
Yep. I also have it randomly, some specific like pulled jokes randomly in some of my playlists.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's times where I'm driving home late at night and I have a playlist on, and suddenly you just start talking at me, and it freaks me out every time.
I have there's an
That's-
ex of mine, and we're still friendly.
Yeah.
and she will oftentimes like screenshot like aging in the club. Like,
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
my- and she's like, "You're everywhere. I
Yo,
can never
that's
get
the
away
one,
from you."
That's the one too, because when I plug my phone into my car,
Yeah.
it'll do the random shuffle and
Yeah.
just start playing something, and it's usually in alphabetical order. So it's like I think it's like the 10th on there. So it'll go down all these different songs, like Acadian Driftwood by the band and a bunch of different stuff, and then suddenly it's just like Aging in the Club.
Yeah.
Setoiyo.
Yeah, so but
yeah.
honestly, please, if you could purchase that or stream that, I would
Yeah.
greatly
Yeah,
appreciate it
it's
because
worth it. It's so funny.
yes, and I am on a major record label, which means that I am not being paid
Yep.
appropriately for the
Not
work.
at all.
Not at all.
Not at
Think-
all.
Think how Diddy did his people in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh? That gives you any
The way he
indication.
did
Really
Tupac?
good music
The way-
videos.
yes, the way he did do
Really
Tupac.
good music
Yes,
videos.
really good music videos
Yeah.
and potentially
Murder.
The murder. Yeah.
Murder.
Yeah.
Are you gonna hit that allegedly button?
So just so the listeners know, we are recording this on October 14th. This episode's probably coming out sometime in late January, early February. I just want to make a note of that before we start recording because we might make references to things that are going to sound old hat, but we are recording this ahead of time because of the oncoming of
And also because
Baby.
new crazy things happen every day. Who knows what future you'll be listening to?
Yeah,
this in.
yeah. They could be listening to this in January 2024.
That's very
and
Flying cars.
we've gone back to vinyl because the
Utopia.
internet doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
We all work for Walmart now.
yeah, we have to. Trump
You're
is Speaker
you're
of the
not
House
going to be a
somehow.
greeter. They're not going to let you.
They'll
do
no.
that.
There's absolutely no
Nah,
way they'll
I
let
don't
me.
know where they're going to put you
Honestly,
at Walmart.
more likely that I'm Speaker of the House of the
Yes.
United States
Yeah.
House of
Yeah.
Representatives
Yep.
at this
Okay.
point.
Yep.
But okay, with that, Setoiyo, you have a topic for us.
Yes.
You've done some research on.
Yes.
And you are going to come here and you are going to lore dump
Yes.
Yeah.
all over this married couple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seems very heated when we say it that way to you.
And keep in mind the optics. I am a black man,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so that's like when a lord over this married couple. I know some of
no.
y'all be watching them type movies.
Yeah.
That's not what's happening.
And I've been at bars where people have been to come up to you
Yes.
and ask that. And I'm like,
Yes.
this is the weirdest shit in
It's
the world.
very strange.
It's fucking odd. But
It's-
anyway.
yeah.
But let's not. This is sounding too much like Them Boys.
Yes.
Our old podcast. Let's talk about your topic. And what is your topic this week?
My topic is, I'm okay. My topic is Muhammad Ali versus Sonny Liston in 1964, and the Civil Rights Act basically was passed in 1964, and the impact that it had or did not have on these individuals in question.
Okay.
But it's one of those things where I'm going to get us to 1964.
Love that.
And
Yeah.
once we get to 1964, I'm going to stop.
Okay.
I may give some other stuff like that, but I'm going to just get us to 1964 because a lot of the stuff that happened prior makes that particular fight incredibly interesting because I think a lot of people have a perception of Muhammad Ali that is woefully incorrect for the time period.
Gotcha. All right. So where do you want to start?
Okay, so I want to start with the idea of the world heavyweight champion of boxing.
All right.
So within the context of America, we have to remember that we're human beings. So we're tribal, we are inherently violent, and we love activities that result in someone being maimed. Like that's our thing.
Yeah.
We really get off on that,
Yeah.
right?
And we call it sport.
And we call it sport when
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
literally it's violence.
yeah.
It's
No,
just
I mean,
like-
listen,
yeah.
nobody
I
watched.
wish we had a sound on the sound deck that was like a bald eagle calling for that exact
Yeah.
moment.
No, that would
what
be-
Americans love. Caw! Violence.
Well, I mean, let's face it. Nobody watches hockey for the pucks.
No.
You know what I mean?
We want them fights.
And honestly, if you go and you watch if you go in and watch sports clips, it's always the fights are always higher. It's like, yeah, we won the championship. That'll be a big one for the city that won the championship. But listen, if I'm watching baseball and those benches clear, oh boy, I'm in it.
Yes,
that's my time.
Yeah, and again, that's the thing that gets the most coverage. In a sports cycle. So when you look at the sport of boxing, there was a time when literally the most popular sports in America were boxing and baseball. That was kind of it.
Yeah.
And to be the heavyweight champion of the world up until about maybe the mid 90s meant that you were the toughest sumbitch walking the face of the earth, full stop. It was the only person above you was like the president. Like it was a big deal to be the heavyweight boxing champion of the world, right? So starting with boxing, and boxing also was at the time, and still is, but at the time, aside from baseball, the only draw.
Yeah.
Like it was the only place where athletes and promoters can make boku bucks.
And real quick, it also was good radio.
Yes.
Boxing translates to radio, and that's
Yes.
very important when we're talking about the 60s, because while people did have TVs, not everybody had a TV. There weren't as many channels.
Yep.
And with the radio, you could put it on. You'd hear the announcer, Ali swings to Frazier. Frazier swings back.
Yes.
Oh, they're ducking. They're against the ropes. They're gonna. And you could also do that white guy voice.
Yes, he's like, coming in quick. He's got him on the corner. He's hitting him with a flurry, a barrage of punches.
He's floating like a butterfly. He stings like a bee. Yeah, you can. There's a way. It's the same way with baseball, dude. Baseball is very radio, but there's times where I listen to football on the radio. And I'm like, this doesn't translate as well. Because sometimes the announcers don't want to tell you the other team scored.
No, they don't.
And I'll be like, did they? And then it's like 20 minutes later, like, by the way, they're up 3. You're like, what?
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
it's all right. So you have these figures that became larger than life figures. And also because of that time period and the time period prior to that, we're a very racist society as a whole. but especially back then. So when you had a world heavyweight champion, that world heavyweight champion had to, like, that was like the guy, not only the guy, but the guy for the people. So like James Jeffries is a white dude, right? James Braddock, another white guy, but he's like a poor white guy. So like a lot of the poor people really, like the Cinderella Man was a movie made about this guy because he shouldn't have been world heavyweight champion at one point.
Yeah.
But then you also have, the legendary Jack Johnson,
Yep.
who was the first recognized black heavyweight champion. And he
Who
was
got
the first.
charged on the Mann Act
Exactly.
a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
He really did. And he was first black world heavyweight champion. So imagine for that time period, the early 1900s, the toughest man in the world is a black dude.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you, it didn't go over well because he
No,
didn't
it
get
did not.
because he
No, it
didn't
did not.
Are you- what?
he
No,
was
it
he
did
was
not.
he was wildly unpopular. He fucked a lot of white women. He
A lot.
did not care.
Oh, man.
And he was good at self promotion.
Yes, he was.
And he was good at flaunting it.
Yes.
And it made people so mad. It was like comically mad.
Yes, it made people
Like to the
real mad.
And it really did. The other thing that you were mentioning in there though about the poverty side of it, because Mrs. P and I talk about this a lot, about it's the same reason why in America the number one high school sport to go up.
Well, I am in guffaw because
Mm-hmm.
I literally told him this fact and he's now saying it like it's okay.
Yeah, well, I'm saying we talked about it. You
No,
brought
yeah,
it up. You go ahead and say it.
We were talking about high school sports.
Yes.
Because where we are, they love football.
Yeah.
And high school football. But I was talking about how through the lens of poverty, actually high school wrestling is the most popular for low income kids because it has a lower bar of entry. You
Yes.
only need to buy the singlet and maybe a helmet thing, and then you that's it. Because of football, soccer, baseball, there's such a high level of cost with equipment and driving and touring. Like it's just so
And
expensive
coaching and all those different things.
And so when you have high school kids that are in wrestling, that's a way to get a scholarship. That's a way to do something that's not too expensive, but you can still get that scholarship opportunity. And so just growing up, I always knew that like wrestling was the thing that the kids did to try to get a scholarship because they couldn't afford the other sports.
And boxing
boxing,
also has
yes.
a low entry point.
Very low entry because I mean you're literally
You need gloves and shoes.
I will tell you this right now. Any boxer that comes from a life of privilege, very few of them actually are ever good, right? Like
They don't have
because
the
they
heat in their
don't have the
tummy.
same they don't have the same struggle. I mean,
Yeah.
for like a point of reference, Chris Eubank, British boxer, Nigel Benn, British boxer, both world champions at middleweight. They both have sons. Both of their sons are boxers and Chris Eubanks told his son, I don't know why you want to do this. You're not a hard man. You didn't grow up hard.
No.
You don't have the skill set for this. Chris Eubank is very good. He'll never be world champion because
No.
he doesn't have that thing in him.
Because also you get punched in the
get
face.
punched in the
You
face.
got to keep walking
Yes.
it. You already got money.
Yes, fact.
Hungry
Listen.
dogs want to eat,
Yeah.
right? To quote Jason
Yes.
Kelsey.
Also, like
You
when
ain't hungry.
when you grow up in a certain way,
Yeah.
you're getting punched in the face
face.
all the fucking time.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're getting punched in the face by cheese that won't melt. You're getting punched in the face because your school clothes don't look like other kids' school clothes. You're getting literally punched in the face by other kids. Like you're getting punched in the face by being poor.
Yeah.
And so it makes it a little bit easier to handle
Yes.
when you get into boxing.
Exactly.
And then, but if you grow up kind of wealthy, you're like, ow,
Yeah.
my feelings.
Yeah,
So shut up.
a coach can teach you how to take a punch.
Yep.
They can't teach you how to process it.
Yes,
though.
yes.
That comes from life.
Yeah,
that comes from fucking life.
Wait, I don't have to get punched? Why on
Yeah.
earth would I do this? So generally, boxing historically has been the sport of the poors. So then you have this time of the Jack Johnsons, and then of course we get through from Jack Johnson, and then eventually a guy like a Jack Dempsey, and then we get to Joe Louis. And Joe Louis is an interesting case because Joe Louis was a black man. He held the world heavyweight title longer than anyone, and he was agreeable. He was a very agreeable man.
Yeah.
He beat up Max Schmeling, and then he
That was
beat
the Nazi.
the
Nazi.
beat
Yeah.
the German,
Yeah.
and he was an agreeable black man. He served in World War II, and he did the thing, and he was a very Joe Louis historically is a pretty beloved figure.
Yeah.
He was a very quiet, non-assuming black guy who beat up everyone and caused no problems.
I just feel like I don't know if it's true, but in my mind, it's just like he's very quiet.
Yes.
Like, and when he's being polite, but then when he gets in that ring, he's like, I have so much rage.
Yes,
just
and,
so much rage.
And that's the thing about him that was so wild is that he would beat on a man.
Mm-hmm.
He would beat a man, devastate them, and then afterward they would be like, "Oh man, like how'd you feel out there?" And Joe would be like, "Oh well, I got lucky tonight. It was a good showing." And it was like, "Joe, you mopped the floor with the guy inside of 3 rounds." He's like, "Anything can happen in the boxing ring, and I'm just happy that it went my way tonight." And it was a good show.
Joe, he no longer knows what his wife looks like.
He's like, yeah.
He forgot the color of his wife's eyes because you rained blows upon his head.
And I wish him well.
It reminded me of that Key and Peele where like the guy is like saying that God sent him.
Oh yeah.
They're
The
doing
ones
boxing
The
promo.
one guy's like, I'll beat you up.
Yeah.
I'm a cute.
Yes.
God has sent me to silence you.
When your mother watches you drink through a tube.
And he started to cry. Remember that? He's like, well, you are paralyzed from next down. And he had tears. I was like, this is
But the
amazing.
Joe Louis thing is again, we were, like I said before, we recorded this in October,
Yeah.
so the Phillies are in the playoffs right now. They just played against the
Yes.
Atlanta Braves.
Yes.
And I know this is probably the most sporty our podcast has ever been.
Sportscast.
And for a lot of our really books people, they're not going to understand a lot of this, but we're just trying to get across the feelings. The Phillies played against the Atlanta Braves.
Yes.
And when that happened, one of the Atlanta Braves talked shit on one of the Phillies players.
Yep.
Phillies player's name is Bryce Harper.
Yep.
The guy who talked shit, his name is Arcia.
Mm-hmm.
Arcia went back to the locker room in front of reporters and said, "Attaboy Harper." Made a big deal about how Harper made a mistake in a game.
Yep.
Harper and the Phillies then broke this man.
Yes.
Yeah.
They destroyed him
Yep.
in ways that it would take too long to explain.
He will never be the same.
He'll never be the same.
Good.
And then afterwards, they're interviewing Bryce Harper on the side of the field, and the reporter's trying to goad it out of Harper.
Yep.
And they're like, "Harper, what do you think? Arcia?" And Harper just looks at me and goes, "It's just a game. We're having fun out there."
Yep.
And I was like, "You fucking dead-eyed
Yes.
shark!"
Yes. Yes.
It's just a game. We're having fun out there.
That's what-
And then they go in the back, and Harper's literally caught on camera going, "Fuck Atlanta."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate these motherfuckers.
That's what killers do.
Yeah.
Real polite up front.
Yeah, but Joe Louis the same way. I can
Yes.
tell you, he also knew the structure of the time.
Yes.
he knew. He's like, they're not gonna let me keep beating up these white
Nope.
guys if I get up there and showboat.
If I'm loud like Jack Johnson was, I'm gonna end up like Jack Johnson, and I don't really need those problems in my life.
Yep.
And it got to a point where America as a whole, especially because an American beat up a Nazi, that the American population by and large, and of course black folk loved Joe Louis the entire time, but white folk were like, yeah, that's our guy.
Yeah.
That's our, and that was a dramatic shift, right?
Yeah, in the 1940s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So Lewis is the champ for like 12 years, and then you get like an Ezra Charles and a Jersey Joe Walcott, all 2 other black fellas who are really really good fighters, and people are largely okay with it. They're like, yeah, black guys fight, and it's a weird form of integration that happened because beforehand, and it was very hard for black fighters to get shots at the actual World's Championship, right? And then you have a situation where Rocky Marciano happens. Rocky Marciano, Italian guy, and he starts.
Who?
Yeah, he beat up all the. Yeah,
she got you at the
This-
right.
yeah. So Rocky, who?
Yeah.
And so Marciano comes along, he's Italian, and he beats up all the black dudes. He beats them all up.
Yeah.
And everybody loves it.
And everyone's like, we got to make so many movies about this.
Yes, and they do.
We should build a statue.
Where can we put a statue?
Yes.
We should put it for the art museum because the way this Italian dude hits black guys is art.
And he comes, he gives, here's how magnanimous people found Marciano to be. Joe Louis was down on his luck. He had some tax problems. He was really, really poor. He needed to come back and have a fight to make money to basically pay off his debt. Marciano did not want to fight this man at all because he knew Joe Louis is old. He's done. He can't do it anymore. He had every right to say no. He said no. Joe said, I need the money.
Yeah.
And Marciano said, because I respect you so much and I think you're the best ever, I'll do this. And what's interesting, prior to that fight, Marciano's brother said to him, and this is the mentality of fighters, like they are killers. He said, "Oh my God, you're fighting Joe Louis. Like, aren't you overwhelmed? Aren't you like, I respect Joe, I love Joe, but he's always like, yeah, but he's Joe Louis. He's like the great." And Marciano come off and he said, "Don't you ever question me ever again. I will beat Joe Louis. I will beat every man who I ever fight.
You got to. You have to have that mentality.
And then he proceeded to knock Joe Louis out of the ring in the 5th round.
Yeah.
So this is the culture of these. And so when I say again that to be the heavyweight champion of the world, you were the toughest bitch in the entire world, and the only person who had carte blanche over you was maybe the president of the United States. And if the American public liked you better, they listened to you before they listened to the president.
No, like
and
the
you had
president's in a
concussions.
wheelchair. Why are we listening to that guy?
Exactly. So then we get to Marciano retires. He's out the game. Then we get another respectable black by the name of Floyd Patterson. He is a light heavyweight who moves up to heavyweight, wins the heavyweight championship of the world at 20, youngest person to ever do it, then loses the title to a man named Johansson, wins the title back. So he becomes the first 2-time heavyweight champion of the world, and Floyd is a respectable, good, easygoing black guy.
Okay.
And then the bear Sonny Liston comes along. Mm-hmm. Sonny Liston was born in 1930 into abject poverty with an incredibly abusive father. Hard life all the way around. Mm-hmm. He learned how to box because he was in prison. He was in the Missouri State Penitentiary, and that's where he learned how to box.
Okay.
Fuck.
Okay.
So
all right. So this guy's a monster.
So the man was already fucking people up.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And then he went to prison to learn how to do it properly.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Do you understand the context of this?
No. That's,
Yeah.
And it's not just any prison. It's Missouri prison.
Missouri
It's
prison.
That's not.
This is a guy who, when I tell you, I mean, they called him the Bear. He was a gigantic looking man. And keep in mind, realistically, he was only like 6'1", 200 20 some odd pounds, but even looking at a picture of him.
Yeah, I just pulled up a picture of him right here.
He's thick.
Yeah.
He's a thick guy.
So I want you guys to understand the context of Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston was Mike Tyson before Mike Tyson.
Okay.
Sonny Liston was brutalizing men in a way that people had not seen since a Jack Johnson, but Sonny had no gift of gab. He was not a promoter of any kind. He went into the ring and he beat the living hell out of you. Oof. And then he got out of the ring. He was, and I'm going to give you more context. George Foreman was mentored by Sonny Liston.
Okay.
Mike Tyson has even said, I am from Sonny Liston's class. I am that guy. Sonny Liston was knocking people out with a jab. If you don't know what jab is, it's a basic straight punch to keep an opponent at bay. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to keep them off balance to set up your other punches. It's not supposed to knock them out.
It's not a finisher.
It's not a finisher.
No. It's a setup.
So Sonny Liston comes along, and people think that Floyd's going to have like a really good run with the title, and he's going to do great things, and it's going to be tremendous. And it's just like, no, we got our new Joe Louis.
Yeah.
Sonny Liston comes along, and Customato, Floyd Patterson's trainer, is like, you cannot beat this man. Under no circumstance. He tells him to his face, you can't beat him. It is impossible for you to beat him. Yeah. You have no chance of beating him. But Floyd, being a good man, said, I have to fight him.
Yeah.
Cuss tried everything he could to make sure this fight did not happen.
And that's one thing. That's one thing, though, with boxing heavyweight championships. What's just crazy is that you can kind of choose.
Yes.
It's not like for Mrs. P, when we watch wrestling, right?
Yeah.
When we're watching wrestling, there's that thing where like the owner of the company comes out, it's like, this fight is going to happen, or like there's it feels like there's a body, there's an organization, there's win records. When you're watching any other sport, there's a world organization that decides who can fight for this to the championship.
Yeah.
It's usually at the end of a season. It's there's playoffs. There's all this different stuff. There isn't that in boxing.
No.
There is just there's a guy. There's a lot of money, and there's another guy. One of them happens to hold a belt. Whoever wins leaves with that belt.
Yeah.
The setup. I mean, you could actually have a champion, arguably, fight somebody with virtually no record.
Yes, it
happens, and it happens all the time. And this is back in the 60s too, back when you're talking about people fixing fights and setting stuff up, building stats.
Yes.
So that way you go and you have squash matches where you'd have a world champion go out and beat some guy who, he works. Where does he work? He works at a truck depot.
Exactly.
He's won 5 amateur fights. All right, cool. Well, so he's undefeated 5-0. Well, He's fighting drug addicts.
Yes.
In the back of a bar.
Yeah.
Well, have you done it? It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You got to make a living.
It's not the same as being the world champion, Floyd
Tell
Patterson.
that to Jake Paul, okay?
So, and keep in mind here,
the king of bum fights.
so Floyd understands I got to fight this guy because I can't be called a coward. Floyd was interesting because Floyd was honest about his insecurities, which a lot of fighters are not. He said, I am afraid of this guy, but I'm not a coward. I can't be called a coward.
It's a good story.
It's a good story. Now, keep in mind, as this is going on, Sonny had been reincarcerated for some time for knocking out a police officer. No big deal.
Yeah. That's,
in the 60s. In the 60s, this man knocked out a cop.
And
he was like, no, this is my training camp. I'm going to go back to prison.
Like,
my training
I got to train. I got to get better. I need to train. I'm outside. It's very comfortable
Wait, do
here.
we know what state he went to in prison?
I don't know where he went the second time around.
It really depends.
So, but his contract, interestingly enough, because a lot of guys had promoters. Well, Sonny was a little distant. It was different. Sonny had a contract, and the guy who owned his contract was Frankie Carlo, who was a one-time hitman and a senior member for the Lucchese crime family.
Perfect.
So I need you to also understand that Sonny Liston was a heavy. On top of being a boxer, he was muscle for the Italian mob. Is it starting to...
Yeah.
Are you starting to see that this...
He was in jail. He was in prison eating well, is what he said.
Yeah.
This...
He punched a cop in the face and they were like, jail. And he was like, are you sure?
Yeah.
And they were like, I mean, we go further than jail, we'll die.
Yeah, we'll die. So
he's being paid by the mob to beat people up on the side.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, they're not using, Sonny's he's final boss. I mean, it's not like they're like, Sonny, do every job.
No, they're not sending him to the corner store.
Yeah.
They're sending like, listen, this guy has done a bunch of gambling at our illegal place. We want you to go out there and scare the fuck out of him.
Yeah.
We got him in the room over there.
Yeah.
He's in the room over there.
Hey, Sonny, it's been a while. Yeah, instead of going into a cooler and punching slabs of beef,
Yeah.
you're going to go into this room and you're going to punch this human being.
Work on this man a little bit,
Yeah.
would you please? So the fight is finally set. It lasts 2 minutes and 6 seconds.
Jesus.
Long time.
A lot of that is just touching, right?
Yes.
That's like, all right, where's his stance? Where's he standing?
Sonny walked him down and proceeded to jab, punch, punch you in the kidney. Now you're covering up the kidney, pop you in the head. Floyd goes down.
Damn.
So, and it was a drubbing by every measure because we have to remember the size difference. Floyd was a light heavyweight for all intents and purposes. He's 189 pounds. I'm 189 pounds. So listen, 225 in the 60s. 225, black and angry. Floyd Patterson, nice man. Floyd Patterson is a sweet boy. Put it there with literally like the baddest man.
I just started picturing him like a Batman villain. Like he was in
he's Bane.
Yeah, like he's Bane.
He's Bane, yeah. I was born in the darkness.
I was born in the darkness.
Yeah.
You merely adopted the dark, right? So,
but once you started describing Tyson is from the Liston school, it started making sense to me. Because I don't know a lot about boxing.
Yeah.
I know some stuff.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, because when I was a kid, that was when Tyson was big. Mm-hmm. And I was very young.
Yes.
And I understood it, but like my dad wasn't into boxing. We didn't get the pay-per-views, any of those things. But one day I went on YouTube, and for all the people that Setoiyo was talking about, to the listeners, if you want to take a pause and go and just type in Sonny Liston highlights.
Yes.
Mike Tyson highlights.
Yeah.
In those highlights, you're going to see men punch in a way that's scarier than you've ever. Like, you think you've seen somebody punch. You may have seen a movie.
Yeah.
You may have seen a YouTube clip of a McDonald's fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
The amount of force that is held in such a small area is devastating. And that was the thing, like with the Mike Tyson ones. When I started watching the clips, I went, oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah.
This man is a little living weapon.
Yes.
To the point where recently... Tyson, they showed a video of him because Tyson's what, like late 50s?
50. He's 55, mid 50s.
Yeah, mid 50s.
Yeah, mid to late.
He's older. He's got gray. He's salt pepper. They showed him, and he was standing with somebody, and they were training, and he was like, "No, you're not throwing the punch right." And the guy who's holding the bag is like, "Are we for real right now?" And Tyson just throws one punch, and you watch the man holding the bag, who is not in danger.
Yep.
His life still flashes before his eyes.
Yes.
He's still just like, oh my God, I just took a Tyson punch. There is a large bag in between him and Tyson.
Not enough.
No.
Yeah.
I need a wall. I need a door, a lock.
That man died
That
inside.
man, yes, yeah, literally. That was not a highlight of his life. That shortened his life.
Yeah.
So then because back then,
So Liston wins.
Liston wins. He becomes heavyweight champion of the world,
Yeah.
and it's a problem because
Oh, no.
because here's the issue. When he became heavyweight champion, everybody was like, "I'm good.
Nobody wants to fight him.
I don't want to do this. I don't want to. I have no interest in this."
Oh.
There was a British heavyweight champion at the time, and he was like, "I will fight anyone but him."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they talked about a title unification, and he was something Cooper, Frankie Cooper.
Yeah.
But he was like, Cooper was like, I'm not gonna fight him.
And real quick,
I just love the idea of like he wins the heavyweight championship and then all of a sudden like a bunch of people that have been trained their whole lives to be boxers sign up for like community college accounting classes.
yeah, basically, yeah.
They're just like,
a few guys like, you know what? I'm just gonna join the army.
HVAC. I think HVAC is a good idea.
I'm gonna join the army real
Yeah.
fast
You know
rather
what?
than fight this man.
I need to become a welder.
But there's one thing we do
They
need to
got a
mention.
good union.
The one thing we do need to mention, though, because you mentioned title unification,
Mm-hmm.
and again for the listeners, title unification happens because different organizations run boxing. All of them, each of them will claim that they're the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yes.
And so what happens is you have one organization over here. It's to compare it to video games. It's like saying I'm the best video game in the world
Yes.
on PlayStation.
Yes.
I'm the best video game in the world on Xbox.
Yes.
I'm the best video game in the world on Nintendo. You do cross-platform, and that's when you start to discover, oh, this game's actually, this game's okay on Xbox, but it sucks on PlayStation.
Yes.
And that's the same thing with these championships. So Sonny Liston is, I'm the heavyweight champion of the world, kind of in America.
Yes.
And then you have a British guy who's like, I'm the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yes.
In Britain.
In Britain.
And they're like, okay, we'll put them against each other, and then you'll be the best heavyweight champion of America and Britain.
And just like always, America crushes the British.
yeah, exactly.
So I'm sorry. So just to correct myself, the British heavyweight champion at that time was Henry Cooper, and Henry Cooper was actually a very, very, very good fighter.
Yeah.
And he said no, thank you.
Yeah.
He said no, thank you. He was content to wait. He
For
was like,
whoever would be, I'll wait for the next champion.
I'll wait to the next champion. And there were reporters. There was one reporter who said Sonny Liston is going to be champion for 125 years.
He's gonna retire.
Yeah,
Nobody can fight him.
he said he knocks people out with a jab. I don't know what we're discussing. I don't know what we're discussing.
No, well, yeah. And to be fair, yeah,
Yeah.
And this also, again, to remind everyone, we didn't know CTE existed
Yeah,
back
we had
then.
no idea.
But the boxers had a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
They'd see the dudes that got punched a lot in the head.
And they called
Yeah.
it punch drunk.
Yeah.
You know, they said, you're punch drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
no,
not-
you're just permanently drunk. And
Yep.
it's like, no. He has brain damage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
We didn't discover, we didn't quote unquote discover CTE until this millennium.
Yes.
Like this
Yes.
century.
This century.
We're talking about last century.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yep.
And these dudes are getting punched hard in the head.
Yes.
All the time.
All the time.
Every day.
For not that much money comparatively.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
And then healing it with alcohol.
yes, healing with alcohol, cocaine, and women, who
Yeah.
they would sometimes beat.
Aw.
Yeah.
Oh,
What?
you took the fun out of it.
I'm so
You took the fun out of the racial
these-
connotations of this story of mob violence.
right? It was all good until you just brought up more violence. So
Violence is fine as long as there's a bell.
exactly, yeah, right. There has to be a
And
referee.
you can make money off of it.
Yeah.
It always has to be profitable. So, interestingly enough, the only person who steps up is the former champion Floyd Patterson, who says, "I have to get my dignity back."
All right.
Floyd Patterson was so ashamed he was going out in public, reportedly wearing masks. Put massive facial. He was so ashamed of his performance.
Oh, wow.
That he said, "I have to get my dignity back." And they had a rematch, and it lasted 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
God damn it.
That's four more seconds
more
longer.
seconds, yeah.
4 more
Damn.
seconds.
So he proceeds. So he destroys him in the ring. Floyd Patterson continues to fight on, but never really is seen as a viable contender ever again. Now, here's the thing that's most important to note about Sonny Liston.
Okay.
He was not well liked. He was considered to be a thug, an oaf. He was of low class. He wasn't well read. He was functionally illiterate for all intents and purposes. He was not a popular man. He was not one of those world champions that the white people liked. They thought of him as an adjacent dude to the mob, who was a Neanderthal. Black people also felt very similar. He makes us look bad. He was not a popular man at all, and it was kind of sad. Only James Baldwin had sympathy for him because he's like, this is just a black guy trying to exist. Things
Yeah.
are being done to him,
Yeah.
and you're mad at him for making a buck.
Yeah.
He is. Look at where he comes from. What else was he supposed to to do, right?
Yeah.
So on the flip side of that, you have Cassius Marcellus Clay.
Who? No, I'm just
Also
kidding.
known as Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Now, it's important to note that during this time of Sonny Liston battering everyone, Cassius Clay goes to the Olympics and wins a gold medal as a light heavyweight. So he's not a heavyweight, small guy. He also comes from a middle-class black family.
Yep.
Which is to say, he's in Louisville, Kentucky, and his family were workers. This was back when the idea of the semi-skilled worker existed. So Sonny Liston had a hard life. Cassius Marcellus Clay began boxing because someone stole his bike, and he was a loud, angry boy, and he went around everywhere and he started yelling, I'm going to find the boy who's took my bike, and when I find them, I'm going to beat them up. Okay. And a local police officer who ran a boxing gym saw this boy yelling and screaming, and he was like, hey, you need a place to take that energy.
Yeah.
And he got him into a boxing gym. So let's be
I
very...
deeply relate to this childhood character.
So we need to be very clear about Muhammad Ali and how he became a boxer. He didn't need to become a boxer. It wasn't a need like it was for Sonny Liston. Because if Sonny Liston didn't become a boxer, he was going to die very early. There had to be something that then he could go back into society and have some type of value to it, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't going to... Cassius could have done anything. You know, he wasn't particularly well read. He didn't really do well in school, didn't particularly care about school, because by the time he found boxing, he also figured out, I'm an exceptional athlete.
Yeah.
I am very, very physically gifted.
But he could have been an athlete in
He could have
anything.
been an athlete.
Yeah.
But within the time and the bounds and everything else you're saying, I completely understand what you mean. Yeah.
So and this is also during a time period where he's starting to see things happen. He goes and, he wins the gold medal, and he comes back to America, and there's that famous story of he's an Olympic champion and he's celebrated when he comes home, and he tries to go to a whites only restaurant and they reject him.
Yep.
And there's the story of him going to the local bridge and throwing the gold medal off the bridge. Now, I don't know that happened. I think it's a good story.
It's a great story.
It's a great story, but I don't think you've thrown off now.
Yeah, but it's literally gold.
It's gold. I don't know.
Yeah.
You sell that shit,
Yeah,
dude.
you sell
Melt
that.
it down.
So Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, gets he gets some.
Well, to be fair, he is Cassius.
He's Cassius
at this point in time.
Yes, he's Cassius.
He hasn't changed his
Yes.
name, and we'll get into that.
So he, some white boxing promoters in Louisville come together because initially Cassius is very well liked.
Yeah.
He's well spoken, he's charismatic, he's very handsome, but he's unassuming. He can cut a good promo. They want to build the kid up. So they come together and they put their money together and they begin to manage him and do all the things for him. And he's such a different change of pace because he's very, very boastful. He's braggadocious. He can rhyme. He's got one of his partners there, Boondini Brown, and they're doing song and dance and all this other stuff. So as Liston is dominating, Cassius is ascending. And Cassius is knocking people out. He's having I wouldn't say overly exciting fights, but he's just a different type of fighter, where you have a Sonny Liston who's a bruiser and a batterer. Cassius is very fast.
Yeah, and he's a showman.
He's a showman.
Yeah.
He doesn't really hit hard, but he hits you quick, and he does these dazzling things in the ring. He holds his hands really low, so there's always the threat of danger because he could get hit, but he never gets hit.
Yeah. He can duck it.
He can duck it. He can do.
But the showmanship is a big part for
Yes.
him, and how much he can talk.
Exactly.
There is a reason why Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali clips
Yes.
are sampled in so many songs, and in so many moments. The saying "float like a butterfly, sting like a bee." We all know what that means, and that came from his brain. And he knew exactly how to talk and all of those different things. And he is just a very, very, very entertaining man. Even if you've never watched or seen a single one of his fights, when you hear the clips, you know it's him.
And what's so funny about this, and that it always comes back around. Ali would later say, I watched Gorgeous George on television. I was a professional wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And I saw Gorgeous George talk, and I saw his ability to make these people feel something. So they would pay to see me lose.
Yep.
So he literally took, because he had a sense of graft about him. He knew I've got to, so he was able to pull that in. And initially it is going great.
Yeah.
And something starts to happen. He has to fight one of the greatest fighters of all time named Archie Moore. Archie Moore was a longtime reigning light heavyweight champion, moved up to heavyweight, fought Rocky Marciano, actually knocked Rocky Marciano down and gave him 9 rounds of hell before Marciano did what he always did, which is knock you out. So Archie Moore at this point is way beyond his prime. But Archie Moore is a revered figure within the black community. He helps out a lot of kids in the boxing gym. He is the protege of Jack Johnson. Like Jack Johnson saw him and said, "You'll be fine." Right?
Okay.
Like that type of thing. But it's one of those things, when you get older, young kids kind of annoy you. And Archie Moore was kind of annoyed by Cassius Clay.
Yeah, because he's talking a lot of shit.
Talking a lot.
Talks a lot of
talking
shit.
a lot of shit. And so
he talks to the reporters.
Yep.
He talks to your mama.
Yep.
He talks to your church.
Yep.
He talks to the people in line waiting to get in the building.
And keep in mind, it's not like he has nice things to say about other fighters. It's only Cassius Clay, and it's a room of one, right? So Archie Moore sits there and says, "This kid talks too much. I've got something for him." They called him the Louisville Lip. That's what they called Cassius. And he said, "I've got something called the Lip Buttoner." And this,
you're gonna
That's
button
such,
that lip.
that's such an old man thing
we
to
are-
say.
yep.
I got a lip buttoner right here for you.
I'm gonna button that lip there, sonny.
This is the 1960s.
Yeah.
And Cassius then sits there and says, "You're falling in 4."
In 4?
In 4.
4. Got
In
it.
4.
He calls it like Babe Ruth.
Yep,
He
yep,
just
said-
calls a
yep,
shot.
Yep. He said, "You're falling in 4." Because of that, because of your insight, I had you at 7 rounds. I put it 7. I was being respectful. Now you will fall in 4. You will fall. And he fell.
Yeah, I bet.
Then he fell.
I gotta say, there's a thing about cockiness which has always annoyed me, right? Because
Yeah.
I had a lot of people over my years call me cocky, and I'm like, listen, well, that's fine. Cockiness is when you talk shit and you can't back it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you hear a man do something like that, you're like, all right,
Yeah.
that's all you can really do. All right, what am I
So-
gonna tell him?
Yeah, you can't
You ain't gonna
say.
say shit.
Stop telling true prophecies.
So he's not particularly graceful in victory on this one. That
okay.
starts-
No shit.
And that
What?
starts to rub people the wrong way because in their minds, you just beat up an old man, which, to be fair, is true. He
The
beat
old
up.
man started it.
He beat up an old man
Yeah.
who probably shouldn't have been fighting. Also, a thing to
But
know.
by old man though, that the man's in his 40s.
Yeah, but also we have to keep in mind boxers of that era, and especially black boxers of that era, it was not uncommon to lie about your age. Because again, you did have state athletic boards that would give off the appearance of care, and you didn't want to make yourself look too old because then you might not be as marketable. So in all likelihood, there's a chance that Archie was older than what he was letting on.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is definite evidence that supports that Sonny Liston was older than what he was letting on.
Oh, wow.
So by the time of 1964, Sonny Liston is listed as 32 years old. It's more likely that he was 40 at the time of that fight.
Okay.
To be clear. So
And the other thing too is to keep in mind as well is that the boxing back then,
Yeah.
they boxed more.
They boxed more,
They
yep.
didn't box with the care, with the training.
Yep.
So you would have times where they were having fights that they were calling sparring matches.
Yep.
That was straight up a boxing match.
It's an exhibition.
It's an exhibition, but it wasn't counted in the record. So
Nope.
you'd see a guy and be like, "Oh yeah, he said 50 fights." You're like, except for the 300 he had
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
in the boxing ring
Yeah.
as an old drunk mob
Yes.
member is screaming in the corner. I want to watch them hit each other.
Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those.
A
Right?
lot of those.
So the tide is kind of getting weird for Clay, and then Clay goes to Britain to fight Henry Cooper.
Okay.
So, and this is one
Henry
of my,
Who's been
the guy-
sitting around
yes,
waiting this whole
who's
time?
been waiting
And ducking Sonny Liston.
Yeah.
So I will not fight this man. And again, Henry said, "I'd fight Clay. I'd fight Patterson. Not fighting that guy. It's not worth it." So Clay goes to Britain for this fight, and he cuts one of the best promos I have ever heard. He's in his new he went to London, bought himself a Cadillac. So he's in the Cadillac with his brother, and they're dancing, they're jiving, they're doing the whole thing and everything. And the reporter comes up to him, he's like, "Well, Cash, it's good to see you. You're looking good, sporting it, as they would say. Are you taking this seriously?" And then you have Clay's there. "Well, I'm not training too hard for this bum. Henry Cooper is nothing to me. This man go over 5 rounds with me. I will not return to the United States for 30 days, and that's final." And he proceeds to get knocked silly in the 4th round.
Who does?
Like
Who gets
Clay.
Clay gets knocked silly in the 4th.
Because Henry could hit, and Henry was a lefty, and that causes problems for most fighters because
Yeah.
it throws your timing off.
Yeah.
And he caught that man in the 4th round, and Clay dropped like a sack of potatoes.
Oh, no.
And then the bell rang. He got knocked out, but back then the bell saved you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he gets up, walks to his corner, and his corner man, Angelo Dundee, is like, "Oh, he's out.
Yeah.
He's out of it.
Yeah.
I got to get this kid.
He's got a concussion.
If this kid goes back out there, Cooper knocks him out immediately.
Yeah.
So Dundee, being the crafty, old-timey guy that he is,
Yeah.
I'm gonna spill a little bit of water in the ring and let me cut his gloves a little bit so I can buy us some time because he can't go out there with these jacked up gloves. I have to redo the gloves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he redoes the gloves and he tells Clay, "You're blowing it, like you're blowing it, kid." By this time, Cassius has gotten his faculties back together.
Yeah.
Proceeds to go out there and rain hell on Henry Cooper for making him look so bad. He cuts open Cooper's face because Cooper was a boxer of that time, a bleeder. He could bleed really easily.
Ugh.
So he gets a nasty cut on Cooper's face, and the cut's so bad that they have to stop the fight in the 5th round.
Nice.
So he called it again. He did it again.
How you come back from a clear concussion?
Yeah.
You're clearly concussed.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I had to punch this man so much that he bleeds.
Yes.
Like somehow that still comes through.
Somehow.
That is crazy to me.
Because again, we have to keep in mind that while all this stuff is happening, Clay is campaigning for a fight with Liston. He is the only one who's seriously campaigning for a fight with Liston, and nobody's taking it seriously.
By the way, I just pulled up a picture of Henry Cooper.
That's
and
an
this
ugly
dude,
dude.
this
That's
guy's got
ugly
a
dude.
fucking mug. This
That
is the most
dude-
British face
Yeah.
I've ever
Ooh,
seen.
that's a ugly dude. That's a
he's
lot
not
of
a-
forehead
This
and a
is
weird shape.
Oh my God, there's the picture of them afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh my God! So this is from Henry Cooper's Wikipedia.
Oh no.
This is like
It's on
the
his
picture.
page.
He looks like fucking hamburger meat. Henry
Yeah.
Cooper looks like hamburger meat. Muhammad Ali looks fine.
Yeah.
But it looks like every picture of Muhammad Ali you've ever seen in your life.
He's fine.
It looks like Muhammad Ali just kind of woke up.
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
He's like, oh yeah, no, it's just this is what he looked like after a nap.
Yeah.
Henry Cooper can't open his eyes.
No, because one of them is swollen shut.
He actually has a hood, but he has a towel over his head because
Yeah.
he's trying to hide
Well, the
Yeah.
blood wasn't stopping.
how fucking beaten he is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that happens. And here's the thing.
Okay.
People now have to start taking this fight a little seriously. Sonny
Yeah.
Liston didn't think that Cassius Clay was a serious contender at all.
Yeah.
He didn't think anything of the man. He wasn't particularly impressed by him. He thought he was a loudmouth. He thought he was undersized. He said, I would kill him. This
Yeah.
would be murder. Cassius Clay wanted to fight so bad, he said, I will fight that man for nothing. He sat there and said, I'm tired of waiting for this fight. I'm anxious. I'm nervous. He's got my job. I'm the champ.
Yeah.
And now he's just beating the British heavyweight champion. So he has more cachet. His argument's
Yeah.
only getting better at this time. So
I beat the champ that won't even fight you.
Exactly. So you have to give me this fight.
Yeah.
So eventually they come to terms to make this fight. And I need to stress this point about Cassius Clay.
Okay.
By this point, so much has happened that Cassius Clay is wildly unpopular. He is seen as a loudmouth. Whereas before he was money hungry and on the take, he is loud, he is boisterous, he talks too much. He should have lost to one of the fighters. He has an overinflated record. He is not seen as a serious contender. So both Liston and Cassius were wildly unpopular. One reporter from the New York Post said, "This is the most popular fight since Hitler and Stalin." 180 million Americans rooting for a double knockout.
Jesus Christ.
And the thing is like whenever I hear about like early Cassius Clay, like all of his promos, I'm in.
Yes.
And like you guys know this about me. When we watch wrestling, like
Yes.
I love a heel.
Yes.
I love a bombastic
Yes.
heel.
Yeah.
I like when you come out and you just talk shit and you're like just like in like MJF. Like
Yes.
I love
Yes.
a bombastic heel. I love the old Miz.
Yeah.
Just talking
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
I love it so
but
much.
but Ric
It's-
Flair learned from Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like all of these, it's crazy how much they feed back into each other.
Yeah.
One point I do want to make for our listeners, because you mentioned Gorgeous George earlier.
Yes.
And we're going to take a break here in a second. But just for the listeners, for Gorgeous George was a professional wrestler. He was a heel. He was a bad guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
His character was queer bait.
Yes. Literally.
No, literally.
Literally.
He came to the ring.
Yep.
He had his hair all done up. He wore makeup. He wore fancy flat like you guys are used to like when you see someone in a fancy robe.
Yes.
This was a woman's dressing gown robe.
Yeah.
And he came to the ring and he blew kisses at men.
Yep.
And then he would win matches. And these homophobes all over America would lose their fucking mind. And the whole time, though, he did basically RuPaul's. It's a snatch game.
Snatch,
He
yeah.
would sit there and be like, okay, you think you can fight me? Well, how are you going to fight him in those bitch-ass shoes?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
I
it's
see
just
what
like that type of shit. Like his heel work wasn't, I'm going to crush you. I'm going to crush you. I'm going to snap you.
Look how beautiful I am.
Yeah.
I'm the most majestic. Sometimes
Yeah.
he would come to the ring with a mirror
Yeah.
to look at himself.
It's Ric Flair getting out of the
Yes.
Rolls
But-
Royce with
yeah,
the
yes.
big,
But it's
like
but
all
it's
that shit.
that, but it's so much more queer coded.
I know, I love it.
And it's the homophobe, and he's just bringing out that homophobia, and so it's so crazy and funny that this is who Muhammad Ali learns
Yes.
from.
And from a social perspective, we have to
Yeah.
remind everybody that Clay at the time, he was hated by black and white folk for kind of the same reasons.
Yeah.
White folk found him to be uppity. Black folk were like, you're making us look bad because
Yep.
they think you're uppity.
Yep.
So it was this weird situation where this was not really like people went to the fight to see someone get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were hoping that it would be Clay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that, we're gonna take a little bit of a break.
Little bump.
And we're back. I hope you guys enjoyed the break. If you didn't, you can always not have to listen to ads by joining our Patreon.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/Pearlmania500. We're recording this at a time when I actually don't know if we have anything special that we've added
I
for the
don't
new
know.
Patreons. Who knows? Who
Anyway,
knows?
let's get back to talking about people hitting each other for money.
Yeah. This is honestly, I've been loving this, dude.
You know what's crazy, Setoiyo, is like I don't know a lot about boxing, and when I there's certain things I know, but I was thinking like there's only like one boxer that I've ever like known any real information about, and it's again based around food.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of this guy, Leon Donkey from New Jersey?
No.
There is a restaurant in Camden, in the heart of Camden. So it's not great to get there.
Yeah.
But this guy was a boxer. His name was, they called him Donkey. And so you go to this restaurant called Donkey's and they have a cheesesteak there. It's the only thing they serve is one kind of cheesesteak, but it's not like a Philly cheesesteak. It's like, it's on a Kaiser roll with poppy seeds. And then it's got like caramelized shallots on it. It's so weird, but it is very good. And so the only thing I've ever known about boxing really is like, oh yeah, you guys want to go over to Camden, go to Donkey's and get like 3 of these sandwiches?
Yeah, you got to have hard CTE to come up with this sandwich.
That is definitely.
How many times you've been punched in the face? Enough times to think that this is a good idea and for it to work out.
It works out. I've eaten a lot of those sandwiches back in the day.
The one thing, just because you know this whole story does revolve around race and boxing and fighting and all the different stuff. It does remind me of when Mrs. P and I lived in South Philly, and it was a time when Floyd Mayweather was fighting Conor McGregor.
Yes.
Now, for our listeners who don't know, Floyd Mayweather, probably one of the better boxers, but also one of the richest boxers to ever live.
Yes.
His pay-per-views generate a lot of money. He is he's flashy with the money. He's not flashy on the mic.
Yeah.
However, the man he was fighting is Conor McGregor.
Bag of shit.
White Irish guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather's black. Conor McGregor, famous shit talker.
Yep.
But he was a UFC MMA guy. So not a boxer.
Yep.
But they're going to have a boxing match.
Yes.
And it was a very big deal. And a lot of people were talking about it. And especially in Philly, when you would be, like, we lived in a mostly black neighborhood. I remember my neighbors looked at me. I came home the one day and they're like, who you rooting for? The Irish guy, right? And I just stopped dead in my track. I said, I'm rooting for the fucking boxer. They're like, what? I'm like, it's a boxing match. Floyd Mayweather's a fucking boxer. You think just because this Irish dude can talk shit, he can get hit?
Yeah.
And then they turned around and proceeded to have one of the most boring fights in the history of boxing.
And then in the 10th round, Floyd said, I gave him a show. I'm done with this. I'm going to knock him out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna knock him.
And he did.
And that's literally what Floyd people forget, like, because Floyd's notorious for this now, because that's now, as you talked about, the exhibition fights that are still like basically fights. That's what Floyd does now.
Yeah.
And what he did with Conor is, if I beat him right away,
Nobody then nobody watches it.
They will never watch me do
Yeah.
anything ever again
Yeah.
because it's a waste of money, right? It's like when Tyson's come back. People didn't like you beat up Peter McNeely in 90 seconds. Like, why would you do? So he's like, no, I'm gonna take him on a ride with me.
Yeah.
And then when it's time, I finish him. And that's what he does now in all of his exhibition fights. He will take them so long as if they don't get crazy on him.
Yep.
He'll like, we'll go the distance.
Well, it's like with baseball. I've been to two separate baseball games, both of which were very important. One, both pitchers were throwing a no-hitter, throwing a no-no into the ninth inning. Most boring fucking game I've ever been in my life. Statistically speaking, though, this was a very important game until the ninth inning.
Yes.
And the people who cared really fucking cared, but I'm watching people leave.
Yeah.
This is one of the greatest exhibitions happening in the history of baseball.
Yeah.
The other game we were at pretty recently, the Phillies scored like 15 runs.
Yeah.
It was 15-1.
It was great.
And at a certain point, it was like the second highest scoring baseball game in Phillies history.
Yeah.
And the thing, nobody fucking left.
Right.
No.
Because it just kept going and going. But
Well,
there was
also
some
the
more.
DJ Diesel at the end of that
Yeah,
game.
Shaq then went
was
on the
there.
field
Shaq
and then
was there.
DJ'd a concert.
Shaq DJ'd afterwards.
Yeah,
so.
Shaq did.
But it was just one of those things, like you're
DJ
saying, though.
Diesel was there. We had to stay.
Yeah, there's a showmanship to it, though. But I'm saying, after if your first game ever was going and seeing two pitchers and nobody gets a hit, I never want to see baseball again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you go and there's a back and forth or there's a thing, there's a competition to it, it seems like the other guy has a chance.
Yeah.
You know, nobody wants to watch a movie.
Yeah.
That's over. It's how long's the movie? Well, the movie's 3 hours.
Yeah.
The action is in the first 90 seconds. And then you sit there and listen to interviews about what you watched for the first 30 seconds. You're like, oh, that's great.
It sounds like a time. Yeah.
All right.
Oppenheimer, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Cash.
Now tell us more about Barbie.
So so we have to remember that during this time period, because really we're covering, with Liston, I gave you more. Liston kind of goes back a little bit further, but I picked up with Cassius Clay about 1960. I did give you sort of where he came from. He's born in 1942, if I remember correctly. So he's a relatively young guy at the time of this fight. He wanted to become world heavyweight champion. He wanted to break Floyd Patterson's record by winning the title at 20. He's 22 at this point, so it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And he's a huge underdog, right? Now, also
22?
He's 22 at this time.
He's a baby.
He's a
Little baby.
So, and he's an 8-1 underdog. Now, we also need to know that from a social perspective, the civil rights movement is actively happening while all this is going on, and it's actively ramping up. And you wouldn't know it based on what we talked about prior to the break, right? Brown versus the Board of Education has already long been passed. Now you have Martin Luther King, out here doing his thing. You have James Baldwin. You have all these other figures in the civil rights movement that are pushing for reform to give Black Americans rights and agency within this country. And you have the world's most dangerous man who's run by the mob. And you have a kid from Louisville, Kentucky, who's run by wealthy white dudes from Louisville, Kentucky. Right?
Okay.
Brown versus the Board of Education didn't save Cassius Clay. It didn't do nothing for Sonny Liston. He was too old. But these reforms are starting to happen, and you have these really influential figures who do understand the importance of having the basically this toughest man in the world sort of on your side. But here's the thing: Sonny Liston is wildly apolitical, right?
Yeah.
Even though his very life he's a political figure just by existing. Cassius Clay, on the other hand, grew up kind of in a Christian family household, but he's been seen kicking it with the NOI's Malcolm X.
Oh, no.
And the NOI is?
The Nation of Islam.
Oh.
At that time, run by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a man who was known to bed underage girls, which was why Malcolm eventually left. So if you don't know too much about the Nation of Islam is basically Scientology for black people. So...
that is okay. Okay. All right, everybody take a beat. Take a beat. He's not wrong.
I know he's not wrong, but I was just thinking about the Black Israelites. No. I know they're not the same.
I know.
But it's like the science. Oh my god.
We're not going to go too big into We're not going to go too deep into the big-headed aliens.
Because I don't want no smoke with NOI people.
Listen. They don't listen. They don't listen to this. But I will say to the people, to our listeners, if you want to have a moment, Google big-headed aliens, Nation of Islam.
Yes.
You are going to be shocked.
Yeah.
Because, again, this is one of those things where they give themselves a specific name, but their connection to what we know today and the cultures we know today, very, very different. This is the 1960s. I think the actual Muslim population of the United States was under 1%.
Yep.
So the idea of there being a large Middle Eastern or South Asian
Or Sunni Muslims, like that.
or Sunni or Shia Muslims, any of those people being in the United States was very different.
Yes.
So where these groups come from, very, very different.
Yes.
So the description that my good friend just said here, this is Scientology, is dead on. Yeah. I cannot stress that. All right, go ahead.
So here's the thing: during this time period, Malcolm X has become a very, very prominent figure within the Nation of Islam. And when he comes from a very, very good, honest place and at this time he's a separatist. We need to note that NOI was basically a separatist. They wanted, hey, give us parts of like the South and whatever, and we'll do our own thing. They
want to be their own nation.
We want to be our own thing. We understand that for y'all, like, integration is not possible. They were not necessarily about that at that time. So, but also there's a lot of fracturing that's going on within the Nation of Islam as well, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is a narcissist. So he's paranoid about the popularity of Malcolm X, because now what Malcolm X is saying to a lot of people, it's kind of tends to go like, it's Malcolm X when the police are roughing up a black dude. It's Malcolm X who's going to Brooklyn with NOI members, and all respect to them because I've seen them put in work and you don't want them problems. But it's Malcolm X pulling up to to police spots in Harlem and Brooklyn with his people, being like, we need to see him, and we need to make sure that you're not doing anything to him.
Yeah, we don't want him killed in a back room.
Yes, and the police would fold. So he's the doer.
Yeah.
So he's gaining a lot of popularity, a lot of credibility, and also Cassius is a 22-year-old man. He's feeling very, very disenfranchised from what he's seeing around. He's like, yo, I can't eat at certain places, I can't do certain types of things. But when I go to Britain, I can be regular.
Yeah.
I went over to London, I could hang anywhere I wanted to.
And that was a big thing from World War II, especially.
Yes, especially.
That was a big thing.
Yep.
European racism at that time was very different than American racism.
Yes. Where ours was very, very overt. They had enough time in with it where it's just like, okay, no, I mean, whatever. They saw him more as a Yankee than anything else when he went over there.
Yeah.
So he's like, man, this ain't right. When I went to Italy, they wasn't treating me like this. What is going on? When he in the Olympics, we're in Rome at the time, he's like, this isn't right. This is really, really bugging him.
Yeah.
And he has no sense of identity. And in comes Malcolm X, man with a fantastic story, who literally was a career criminal, also probably might have been a sex worker. That information is coming out now. The man might have been queer. We don't necessarily know. But just an influential figure, turned his life around, became this very, very well-read, educated person while doing time in prison, and then rose to a very, very high prominent spot in the Nation of Islam, whom was talking to this young man in such a way that was giving this young man a sense of identity. Yeah. And if the people disliked Cassius Clay before, the reports of him hanging out with Malcolm X made him even more unpopular.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So now, and he won't talk about it. No one's really talking about it. They're just friends. He's like, yeah, friends, just talking to this young black man, helping him out along his way. So now we finally get to the whole setup of making this fight happen. Now everybody is sitting there saying Cassius Clay is going to die. Now they sit there and said it's going to last longer than the Floyd Patterson fight, because it's going to go the first 3 minutes and then he'll die. He will have taken so much punishment, he will die on the stool and it will be over. So literally, Cassius Clay was nervous about fighting this man. Make no mistake about it. But the thing about Cassius was, Cassius understood, since I'm nervous, I need to be crazy.
Yeah.
I need to act in such a way that is crazy. And Sonny Liston is a bully. And Sonny Liston, it comes from a place where bullies bully. But what are bullies afraid of? Crazy people.
I was gonna say, it's like riding a septibus.
Yes.
You just gotta be a little extra crazier
Yep.
than the crazy people.
Yeah. No, exactly. No, it's the old prison saying too. When you go in, just act nuts. What are you in
crazy.
for?
Yeah.
Parking tickets.
Yes, yeah. You headbutt the strong. So during the pre-fight weigh-in, and a couple days before the fight or a day before the fight, like, Sonny is chilling.
Yeah.
And I think Clay had made a prediction about when the fight would end. I think he might have said the 7th or the 8th round. And Sonny was like, okay, I'll get him out of here in 2. And Clay comes in, and Clay's a madman. Clay's a madman. He's yelling. He's screaming. He sits there and says, I predict that someone will die at ringside from shock. He is working himself up into such a fervor. They do his blood pressure. It's like 154 over. It's spiked. High as shit, to the point that they're like, the fight may need to be canceled. This man is on the verge of having a breakdown. He's having a breakdown. And Sonny is like Clay is like trying to get over to him, and people are holding him back, and like
they're doing a pull apart.
Yeah, Sonny's sitting there.
Yeah, Sonny's sitting there. I'm saying, but like he's like trying to scramble. It's like a pull apart.
Yeah, and like he's frothing at the mouth. He's doing all this crazy stuff. And Sonny's like, this motherfucker's crazy. This motherfucker, he has come into my training camps, which he did prior to he would show up to Sonny Liston's training camps while Sonny's hitting the heavy bag, like, I'll fight you right now. And then he goes, and Sonny like leans over to hit him, and then Clay would run away.
Well, yeah.
So Sonny, it's dawning on Sonny, he's been crazy this whole time. He's been an insane person. I thought he was just like a loudmouth.
Yeah.
No, he's loud because he's crazy.
Yeah.
Because he's a Louisville Lip.
Yes.
He's a Louisville Lip, and now he's seeing it for the first time, and he probably is also coming from a situation where like he may have seen some clips here and there, but he never got the full story.
Really had to see. And keep in mind, in all likelihood, Sonny Liston was 40 years old. So now he's a grown older man, especially of that time period. He has bad shoulders. He's got bursitis in both of his shoulders. He's like, his knee is fucking jacked up. His back is not doing too great.
He groans when he gets out of bed, like all of us do now.
Yeah, I mean, literally, they were doing experimental stuff on his body that we now do, right? A lot of PT stuff that he was doing. And also keep in mind, in 3 years, Sonny Liston had done like 4 minutes of actual in-ring work. He hadn't fought a lot.
Because nobody will fight him.
No one would fight him. So he's not logging a lot of minutes.
So he's rusty.
So he's rusty, and he's feeling very vulnerable, and they want him to fight a crazy man. They want him, and he's like, and he was like, my life every day. It's culminated to this. You want to put me in the ring with this crazy man who's hanging out with the Nation of Islam? You want?
Yeah, because now he's thinking if he doesn't get me, the Nation will shoot me.
Exactly. Yeah. If I beat him up, then they gonna kill me.
Yep.
What type of? So literally, it was wild, but it's crazy. So they separate the two. They put Clay in another room. They do his blood pressure again. Totally normal.
Yeah.
Totally normal. The man put on the performance of a lifetime.
Yeah.
He had to literally work himself up into this fervor. And then this fight was held, I believe, in Miami. And this is in February. It's February 1964. And they get into the ring. And honestly, you look back at it, it was clear who was going to win this fight. Clay is towering over Liston.
Yeah.
Liston wore extra he had a robe on, and he had on extra sheets and stuff like that to make himself look bigger.
Oh,
like Clay was just so much bigger than him. Clay was like 6'2", almost 6'3", 212, but lean, slender. Arms were long.
Yeah.
So the fight starts, and Liston can't find him.
Because he's ducking him.
He's so much quicker.
Yeah,
so
and he's like almost 20 years younger.
Yeah. And he's so tall. So the jab, Clay is so long and so quick that jab that always does something. Clay just does this.
Yeah, just a quick lean back.
He doesn't even duck. He just leans. He does the wrong thing. You never lean away from the moving train.
Yeah.
Because you get hit eventually. No. He just kept doing this the entire time. And then he's realizing he's so much quicker than Liston. He just starts popping him. Boom, 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 boom.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hits him. Boom, boom. And it's the first round. And everyone is in shock because Liston almost got knocked down.
Yeah.
It was wild to watch. The announcers were in shock because Clay was boxing his ass. Clay was beating the hell out of this man.
Yeah.
People forgot that Clay was a good boxer.
Clay can go.
Clay could go. So it's 5 rounds of this. And then, or by the 5th round, it's clear that things are not going well.
Mm-hmm.
So there had been reports in the past that if Sonny Liston ever found himself in a bit of trouble during a fight, his trainers would rub something on his gloves and on his shoulders. So if he got a guy in a clinch, he would rub himself his shoulders into the guy's eye, and the guy wouldn't be able to see.
Ooh,
like icy hot or
sneaky.
something.
Icy hot.
Yeah.
It was reported that he did that to Cleveland Williams, a really, really hard puncher, twice in their 2 fights. And things were back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. All of a sudden, Cleveland couldn't see. Cleveland got knocked out. So we go to the 5th round. This happens. He gets him, ties him up, puts the whole thing in his eyes, and Clay can't see. And Sonny Liston starts to go to work. And it's rough. Like, that 5th round was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they go to the corner, and Clay said, and again, Muhammad Ali he was one of the toughest men that ever existed in the boxing ring, but he became that. He wasn't always that. You don't become the greatest, right?
Yeah.
He gets in the ring. Goes to the corner. He tells Angelo Dundee, "I can't see. Cut my gloves. I'm out." Angelo Dundee says, "You're what?" He says, I can't see, I'm out. And Angelo was like, "This is for the championship, kid."
Yeah.
"You're not out. Are you crazy?" He's like, "I can't see. He blinded me. I can't see." So he's putting, like, basically open your eyes, just dousing his eyes with water. And he says, "I need you to hang in there. You need to give me 6 minutes. You have to survive. If you can get through 6 minutes, your eyes will clear up. I promise you they will clear up."
That's crazy.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So that's nuts.
Yeah.
That his trainer's like, "Listen, icy hot to the eyes only lasts for 7 minutes."
Yes.
like that is.
Yes.
Everybody knows that.
That is that's some restaurant manager weird shit of, "Listen, turn the music down and the lights up. They'll leave."
Yes.
Yeah.
And in reality, what he was literally saying to him, it's basically, that same thing of being like, "No, it's going to burn, but eventually you'll be able to see."
Yeah.
Because enough time's just going to elapse. It's still going to hurt.
But be blind out there while a man punches you in the face for 6 minutes.
Yes. So the 6th round, it starts a lot like a lot of damage.
Yeah.
But Clay's starting to find his range. He's starting to sort of get his wits about him again. So towards the end of that round, he had landed some shots. And keep in mind, Sonny had been getting battered for like 4 rounds prior to that.
Yeah.
So now we go.
And again, Sonny hasn't really boxed in 3 years.
Yep.
There's a big cardio component that goes with this. There's a lot of things that are happening here.
Yes, a lot of things.
A lot of stuff that's adding up.
And then we go to the 7th round, and Clay unloads on Sonny Liston.
Oh.
Clay, to the point that it looked like Liston was gonna go down, and it's that fight. And I wish I think they have it in color now, but it's just such a great display of skill and will from both individuals. One who hasn't approached his prime, one clearly past his prime. So Clay beats him real bad in the 7th round. So they go back to their corner. They go back for the 8th round, and Clay gets up, and Sonny refuses to get up.
Oof.
He won't get out of the corner. They're telling him, "Hey, they've rung the bell. You've got to go back out there," and he's not moving. And Cassius starts to dance in the corner because if you don't answer the bell, you concede the fight.
Yeah.
And he's refusing to answer the bell. He's not saying anything. And they call the fight. Cassius Clay, at 22 years old, becomes the heavyweight champion of the world, arguably the legit heavyweight champion of the world, as he's just beaten Henry Cooper. And keep in mind, he at that point was the youngest man to win the heavyweight title from the heavyweight champion, whereas Floyd Patterson had won the heavyweight title in a tournament because Rocky Marciano had retired. So this 22-year-old kid has made history, and the people are shocked. It's not
Are
like
they booing?
No, they're not saying anything.
Oh,
They're just like
Yeah, it's just one of those moments where you just saw something. You don't know what you saw.
Cassius Clay was an 8-1 underdog. At that point, that was the biggest underdog.
Somebody got so rich
that had ever been recorded in professional sports up to that point. And now Clay is on. He's on the apron, and he's "I told you, I 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 told all of you." And then that's when he dropped that famous interview. I just whoops and he listen. I turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I'm so pretty. I'm so pretty. I'm a bad man. And the interview dude was like, "You're not that pretty." He's like, "I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world." And Joe Louis is there. And he's like, "What the fuck is this?" Like this fucking guy is the fucking heavyweight like Joe Louis, the greatest of all time. But this is what the fuck this
Yeah.
shit that's
These
going
young
on.
kids.
And literally, you
Pull
know,
your pants up.
And so during the press conference afterward, he's like, I shook up the world. It wasn't that good. Sugar Ray Leonard was there with him, a great middleweight champion of the world. They were like, you know, he was a mentor to Ali or to Clay at that time. And then the wildest thing happens. We don't hear too much from Sonny. Kind of just disappears. And that night turns into morning. Morning turns into day. And Cassius Clay announces to the media that his name is now Cassius X. He has officially joined the Nation of Islam. So now the toughest man in the world is a part of what is considered by some in America at that particular time to be a known hate group, to be a cult. The toughest sumbitch in the world is in an active hate group, and his name is now Cassius X, and it is only February of 1964. So the world, it kind of like befuddlement is not the word.
Yeah, you can hear the silence from us.
Yeah.
We're both just like, I never heard the Cassius X part.
Yeah, I never knew that.
I knew he changes his name from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. I didn't know there was a middle.
It was Cassius X initially.
Yeah.
So and he people like it was literally like a what the fuck thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Can we strip him? Can we do something?
Yeah.
What can we do?
Who's going to take it from him?
this-
Who's going to take it from him?
Well, at that point,
Send somebody in. I want to watch him try.
Well, that's the thing. At this point, and then Sonny comes out with the, hey man, I've been in bad shape, but it's not landing.
Yeah.
With people, right? It's not landing with people. Now they did eventually have a fight in 1965. The fight, there was supposed to be a rematch in 1964, but I believe now Cassius X, who by that point, I think a week had gone by, he becomes Muhammad Ali. So they were supposed to have a rematch in 1965 or 1964. Sonny had an excellent training camp. He really got himself into the best shape that he could possibly be in. And then Ali had to undergo emergency surgery.
Yeah.
Muhammad
Ali couldn't fight.
He couldn't fight. He had to undergo emergency surgery, so that pushed it back. And I don't know if you know anything about fighting, but you know, if any of you here train in any type of athletic capacity, you know what it's like to overtrain, or when you get yourself to the peak of your training, something has to happen, or you just go down. And then you have to try to build yourself back up again. But when you're now a 41-year-old fighter of that era, you don't just go down. You fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
Right? So Liston's effectively done in that time. But what's most interesting about this is that in, I believe, later that year, the year of our Lord and Savior, July 2nd, 1964, we have what came to be the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Yeah.
And this is something that Black Americans had really been striving for a very, very long time. And it's an act to enforce the constitutional right to vote, to confer jurisdiction upon the district courts of the United States of America, to provide injunctive relief against discrimination in public accommodations, to authorize the Attorney General to institute suits to protect constitutional rights in public facilities and public education, to extend the Commission of Civil Rights to prevent discrimination in federally assisted programs, to establish a Commission of Equal Employment Opportunity and other purposes. And the bill, it was a long time coming.
Yeah.
So basically, blacks could vote and such, and discriminate. They came out and said discrimination bad, discrimination not good.
And it took a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now
We're being very high level on
yes.
this.
Now, of the two individuals that I brought up, do you think that benefited either of them? Sonny Liston's a felon.
Yeah.
Sonny can't vote. He couldn't vote prior to that. Right. So the ability for him to not be discriminated against was actually impossible. He's already rather disliked. Right. Then you look at Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali now. What impact would that have on, at that time, the most unpopular man in America? Sure, maybe he can vote. But then they sit there and say, Well, this bill prevents discrimination. What you'll find if you go forward in the story of Muhammad Ali, he was actively discriminated against by the United States government. He failed the draft test, so he was unable to be drafted. They said he was functionally illiterate, he tested poorly. He's a liability. He fails the test. Cool. He can't do it. They reclassify him as 1A, and they say he must go serve in Vietnam. Now, that's later. That's about 1967-ish. But I think what's so important about the Civil Rights Act is it spoke to a lot of people who would eventually be people like me. It spoke to a certain class of black folk, right? So it spoke to a certain class of black folk. It spoke to a certain group of black folk. It was going to take longer for a bill like that to reach a person like a Sonny Liston, someone who grew up in abject poverty, right? It was going to take longer for a bill like that to meet a Muhammad Ali, a guy who was thought of to be a part of an active hate group, terrorist organization, cult, right? So these were, and again, at the time, you could argue, Cash, Muhammad Ali at that point was probably one of the most free men in the world, certainly the most infamous, right? So we could go around, but where could he actually go? What could he actually do? And I think that a lot of times in public policy, right, because I do a lot of work in North Philly, right? And I work with people 16 to 24, help them get their GEDs and then learn a trade. There are a lot of social reforms that are being passed that literally do not hit them. That don't touch them at all. And I see it. So it's one of these things that I want people to keep in mind, because while you have this incredible social event that's happening on both ends, the Civil Rights Act and, at that time, professional sport, professional boxing, those two, they weren't necessarily interlinked.
I think a lot about, there's a Chris Rock joke from years ago about time machines. And he's like, time travel is great. He's like, but I'm black. I won't go back before 1980.
Exactly.
And I was always like, why 1980? Why not 1970? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, why not? Well, 1960? Okay, I get that. 1950, anything before that? Okay. But it really is. It's like 20 years. It's really, I'm born in 84. Civil Rights Act was in 64.
Yep.
And it's not until that 20 years later you really see the difference that it's starting to make. And same thing with you.
Yep.
And you start to see that. And I think it was something that got brought up to me recently. Major League Soccer in America, right? So we have the different teams. We have the Philadelphia Union.
Yes.
Which actually they actually are located in Chester.
Yes.
They're not actually in Philadelphia. They're in a very low income, high poverty area known as Chester, Pennsylvania, right on the river, because the land was cheap.
Yes.
And they built specific roads so all of the well-to-do white people who like soccer can drive through Chester and feel safe to go to this stadium. But one thing that Major League Soccer does a lot is they always say that, soccer brings people out of poverty all around the world. Look at all these poor people who became big soccer stars. But then, right now, Major League Soccer has a deal with Apple Television. So if you are low income, how the fuck are you even going to see soccer?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so soccer doesn't get played that often on broadcast TV.
Yeah.
So if I want to actually watch American soccer,
Yes.
I have to have a cable package to be able to get ESPN or ESPN2. I have to be able to get this. And this is just to watch it.
Just to watch it.
I'm not even talking about the fields I get to play on if I was a poor kid in North Philly. Because I drive past those fields, and those fields are full of pockmarks. They don't have turf. It is dirt. They don't even have a net for the fucking goal.
You can't play on them.
Don't play on them.
Yeah.
You do it.
There's needles. There's needles. There's glass. There's broken. And on top of that, you're dealing with an area of systemic violence that you have a lot of people PTSD running around. And so it's like you have all these different things. And so when you go back to the era you're talking about in 1964, the Civil Rights Movement, it's a great milestone and it looks good in a history book, but it ain't done.
Yes. And then at the time, these again, Brown versus the Board of Education and all these, that was for the future. Even though the Brown versus Board, that's in the 50s. Like, no, but this is in the future. The people alive at that time, like, great for my kids and my kids maybe, but actively in the moment, I'm already who I am.
The owner of the fucking Dallas Cowboys, the current owner,
yes,
he was standing in the crowd of white kids, keeping the children from going into that Little Rock school.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was actively protesting against it.
And
I mean, these people are still alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
they're people's grandparents.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things that when people talk about it being such a I would never go back to the 60s if there was a time travel machine, right? You know where I would go back to? 1984.
Yeah.
I would go back to the year I was born just to get a look at my mama back then, and I come right the fuck back here.
No, you wouldn't want to go back there just to see Ronald Reagan dominate that election.
Jesus Christ.
You're just like, he about to do some shit.
And they'd be like, yo, Reagan about to do damage out here. Damage.
I'd go back to 1984 and go to an old school McDonald's with a ball pit and eat a Happy Meal on a Hamburglar. Relive the nostalgia.
I
of
would do
childhood.
fentanyl-free cocaine.
Nice.
Oh
you
shit!
do
I
that
didn't even
nice-
think about that. The
No.
cocaine was so good back then.
Yeah.
What I would do, actually,
Get that Escobar cut.
I would go to 1984 just to get a look at my mama. I catch a flight to New York. I'd go to the clubs back
Yep.
then.
Yep.
I would.
Oh, gotta
I would
get
tell,
some good fits.
I
Gotta
would
get
te-
some good fits. Can
I
you bring them
would-
back with
yes.
you?
And I would tell them all, you must wear condoms.
Yeah.
Like for like a long time.
Yo,
You just have-
listen. You go back to 1984 and you go, I'm going to tell you two words that are not going to make sense
Yep.
right now. AIDS and crack.
Yep.
And then you look at them and go, AIDS and crack.
Yep.
Duck both.
Duck both of them.
Duck AIDS and crack, and you will go far. Also, buy stock in Apple.
Exactly right. Yep.
AIDS, crack, Apple.
Yep.
Duck 2,
Duck
buy
2.
3.
Yeah. Boom. Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, "There's a crazy man on the street
Yeah.
corner screaming about apples." We don't know.
I don't know. He said, everything changes one morning in September. What the fuck
Right,
did that
right.
even...
Yeah, that'd be my 12 monkeys. It'd be my 12 monkeys.
This
one.
time portal is like Agent of Chaos.
Yeah,
for
Yeah.
sure.
right.
And
All
I'm
right.
sitting at McDonald's. Like, remember when we used to get free toys and there was a ball pit?
Yeah, meanwhile, I'm sitting next to him like, you can still smoke in here?
Right.
Steal every McDonald's ashtray. They used to have brown glass McDonald's ashtrays.
Yeah.
And you could
I remember.
smoke next to the playground.
Yeah.
like
That was
God- like
inside.
God
it was an
intended.
indoor. It was an indoor playground.
Hey, being a parent was hard.
Yeah. Listen, when mommy's done her Newport, we
Yep.
gotta go.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
No seatbelts in that car.
Nope.
Get
None.
in it.
None. You're gonna sit in the station wagon in the back seat that faces the rear.
Yep.
I don't even want to see your face, so
Yep.
you could be choking to death.
Nope.
That's back when.
But you know what? If our car gets rear-ended, you are flying face
Yep.
first into the car behind us.
I will lose. I will save money. I will lose you, and I will save money. I'll miss you forever.
Yeah.
But the Ford Escort is king. So we have to,
Yeah. And our coffee is too hot.
yes.
I'm getting burns. I like it. We all agree. We're all like 1984.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't want to go back to the year I was
Yep.
born.
Yep. Got it.
Yeah, you know what? I'd probably go back. I would go buy like a bunch of vintage, not vintage, but like brand new in the box Millennium Falcons that say
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi on them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I'd bury them in a cave,
Yes.
find a dry cave,
Yep.
just put a bunch of that stuff aside and be like, I'm going to come back. Listen, these are going to peak right around the time the first of the Disney Star Wars movies are. When The Force Awakens comes out,
Yeah.
I'm selling you.
Now-
That's peak.
Yep.
And then I'm going to flip that into, what does this say here? Dogecoin? Dog coin. I'll figure it out. There's a list. There's just a list of things to do.
Yeah, right. It's like-
buy Apple, sell,
Yeah.
buy doggy coin, sell before that SNL episode.
Yeah,
what the
right.
fuck does that even mean? Beware white South Africans?
Right.
Well, that makes sense in the 80s.
Right. Exactly. Right. It's like,
How can that still be a
Relevant.
problem? How can that still be a
we
problem?
haven't figured this out yet. Fuck.
Yeah. Amazing story.
That was a great story.
Amazing episode.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now I want to watch Muhammad Ali movies.
I would simply tell y'all if you guys are interested in boxing, or interested in sort of what Ali looked like, because I think that there is
Well, one thing to note is the more they had, their second fight
Yes.
is more famous.
Yes.
Muhammad Ali versus Sonny Liston 2.
Yes.
The famous image of Muhammad Ali with his arm kind of
Yeah.
curled, screaming at a man who's on the ground.
Yes.
That is from the second fight.
That's from the second fight.
We did not talk about the
Yep.
second fight, but that is famously from that.
Yes.
You can see the clips online. But the one that Setoiyo mapped out for us, that was Muhammad Ali versus Sonny Liston 1, which I did look up, and there is some colorized
Yes, there's some colorized
video
versions.
of that
Yep.
on YouTube.
I would just suggest that if you can, and I would always tell someone this, watch Muhammad Ali from 1964 to 1970. And in that, you will see the best boxer that has ever lived. And then watch Muhammad Ali from 1972 right about till 1978. And you will still see the greatest boxer that has ever lived, only because of how much punishment he could endure and still find ways to win. Whereas the first Ali, no one could touch him.
Yeah.
From that time period when he was champ, that first run of his, I mean,
He really does have long arms.
He's-
I'm looking
yeah.
at, he's got like Phelps arms.
yes. And keep in mind, like when he was at light, if you look at a picture of him when he won the gold medal in Rome, when he was light heavyweight, he's one of the most jacked people I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
So like it's a crazy, and again, he is, because boxing is inherently a violent sport, but he made it look beautiful. There's no
Yeah.
other way that I can say it.
Yeah.
He made that art form look like an art form.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just pulled up the image.
He's gigantic.
It's of him. I don't know who he just beat here. He's having his hand raised, but the guy he beat the dog shit out
Oh
of
my
him.
God.
That's what's funny though. The one thing I will say, when you have some of these fights from back then,
Yeah.
guys used to bleed more.
Yeah.
A lot. They used to let him go a little bit further. They
The
didn't-
refs were literally just there to count in many
Yeah.
instances.
Yeah, and so like when you're looking at some of these images
That's
of
such a
some of these
hilarious
guys,
image.
yeah. When you
So
look at
much
the,
taller than them.
well, he's also standing on that box. Remember, it's the pedestal
the
thing
pedestal,
too.
John, yeah.
But yeah, when you're looking at some of these, it's just some of these guys you're talking about. As I pull them up, and they're just so broken. And he's standing there just smiling next to them. He broke these.
Not
men.
a mark on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he looked like he went for a run.
Yeah.
That's why he's sweating.
Yeah. He's just a little
it's
Is that
sweaty.
like a
He just-
hard
yeah,
one? Like the kind of like Sunday afternoon?
Yeah, just
I
4.5.
wanna, like get my adrenaline going.
Yeah.
got a little 4 mile run.
Yeah.
in.
The other thing that is we should note is for some of our listeners who are about our age, I was never smart enough not smart enough, cognizant in a world where the Muhammad Ali talking and talking shit wasn't from the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of the damage that was done to him. So
Yes.
I remember it was the 96 Atlanta Olympics was the famous one of him lighting the torch.
Yes.
Or I guess he was lighting the arrow or
Yes,
whatever that
yeah.
goes into the thing. But his Parkinson's
Yep.
was really bad there and
Yep.
shaking and everything. And it was a rough life for him at the end.
Yes, and honestly, and I'll be honest with you, Muhammad Ali was arguably one or two most recognizable people on the planet.
Yeah.
Right? So he wasn't particularly loved here. He was loved everywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was
Especially
only,
in Africa.
Especially in Africa. Europe
Yeah.
loved him a whole lot. It was only until you got to see 96 Parkinson's Ali that America kind of like fully softened and were like, he was great.
I think
but it took him being so fragile for
Yeah.
But it was. I think it was also though due to wrestling as well,
Yes.
because he came out. They started doing Superman versus
Yep.
Ali.
Yep.
The comic books.
Yes.
There's a bunch of other different things that he does in both Hollywood, on film and television over time that softens him.
Yes.
When he isn't a fighter anymore.
Yeah.
And once that happens, once he's not a fighter, people are like, okay. Because the same thing happened with Tyson. Remember,
Yes.
Tyson, people are screaming about, he's a rapist, he's all these different things, he's a monster. And then he had a cartoon show.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? Like he had a
And then he
cartoon
did
show on
that-
Adult
he
Swim.
was in that
The Hangover.
movie.
Yeah, he's in the Hangover
He's
movies.
got a podcast that's very popular. It was one of those things like once you see, like
Once the violence stops.
Yes, and they get to see you like kind of be humbled in a way, because let's be clear, like people kind of like, and I'm not gonna lie, like I wasn't one of them. I wanted to see Lennox Lewis knock out Mike Tyson. I thought Mike was wilding at the time. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to, I never saw Ali fight because it was before my time. I would see it later, but like,
Yeah.
like there were people felt sympathy for Ali when they knew Ali couldn't do it anymore, and they just saw him getting hurt.
It was also one of those things too. By the end, he has a different manager.
Yes.
and that manager's clearly using him.
Yes, Don King was
Yeah.
clearly in there
Yeah.
for the
and Don
money.
King was a scumbag.
Bag
He's
of
a son
shit.
of, yeah. he's
And
a-
maybe we'll do a future episode on Don King.
Oh, I would love that because
Yeah.
he's such a so and so.
Yeah.
yeah,
But
Yeah.
yeah.
But we are running out of time, and this has been an awesome episode, and I really do
Yeah.
appreciate you coming all the way out here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all so much for having me.
Now that people have heard you, why don't you give your plug one more time
Okay.
of where they can find you online?
Well, you guys once again can find me on all social media platforms, the TikToks, the Instagrams, the Threads, the X, the Facebook at Setoiyo1, Setoiyo1. If you could follow me on TikTok, I'd really appreciate that because that's the one that I actually do best on. Not nowhere near like Pearlmania, but y'all already know that. But also you can do that. Also, please download, buy, stream my album, The Foreigner. I will sit there and say this, aside from the famous folks, and I've talked to the folks that were there that night and who have seen other specials, I genuinely do believe that I put forth one of the better comedy albums of 2022, and I will stand on that. So if you could buy that, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Yep. So if you're listening to this in 2024, know that 2 years ago you missed a really good album, so it's your time to catch up. And having been there live and having heard the actual album itself by listening to it while I want to drive one day, it does translate very, very well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to close this episode. Mrs. P, any final thoughts?
No, let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.